The young waitress gently slid the plate of pancakes toward the boy, whispering, "Same as always, kiddo." On the house. She never asked his name, never expected anything in return. But that crisp autumn morning, the entire town seemed to hold its breath as 4 sleek black SUVs rolled into the gravel lot outside the diner. A man in a crisp military dress uniform stepped out, clutching a neatly folded letter. Who were they, and why did everyone? Emma Larson was 29, a waitress at Betty's Diner, a cozy spot wedged between a feed store and a gas station in the small town of Whitefish, Montana. Her days followed a predictable rhythm. Rise before the sun, pull on her boots, walk 4 blocks through the chilly morning air to work, tie her worn denim apron, and greet the early regulars with a smile that masked the quiet ache she carried. She lived alone in a studio apartment above the town's only bookstore. Her family photos faded from years of Montana's dry air. Her father had died when she was 15, her mother 2 years later. The aunt who raised her had relocated to Boise for her health, leaving Emma with sporadic Christmas cards and the occasional text. On a Tuesday in mid-September, Emma first noticed the boy. He was no older than 10, small and wiry, with sharp eyes that scanned the room while giving nothing away. He claimed the booth by the window overlooking Flathead Lake's distant shimmer, a backpack too big for him propped beside him, and a book, always open on the table. The first day, he ordered only a glass of water. Emma brought it with a smile and a plastic straw. He thanked her with a barely noticeable nod. The second day, the same. The third, the fourth. By the second week, Emma had clocked his routine. He arrived at 7:10, exactly 50 minutes before school started at the elementary school 5 blocks away. He'd sit, read, sip his water slowly, watching as ranchers and retirees ordered huckleberry pancakes, sausage links, and hash browns. At 7:55, he'd shut his book, thank her softly, and slip out, having eaten nothing. On the 15th day, Emma accidentally set a plate of pancakes in front of him. "Whoops," she said, feigning confusion. "Kitchen made an extra order." "Hate to toss it." The boy looked up, suspicion wrestling with hunger in his gaze. "It's fine," Emma said gently. "Cook mixes up tickets sometimes. Better you eat it than let it go to waste, right?" She walked away before he could argue, glancing back from behind the counter as he cautiously picked up his fork. 10 USD. Minutes later, the plate was clean, and the boy's eyes stayed glued to his book, a deliberate avoidance that tugged at Emma's heart. "Thanks," he murmured as she cleared the plate. It became their quiet ritual. Each morning, Emma delivered the extra order or mistake from the kitchen. Pancakes with huckleberry syrup one day, eggs with toast the next, oatmeal with maple sugar as the Montana mornings grew frostier. The boy never asked for anything, never spoke beyond a hushed, "Thanks," but he ate every bite, sometimes so fast it seemed he feared the food might vanish. "Who's that kid you're feeding?" asked Walt, a retired forest ranger who parked himself at the counter daily, nursing black coffee. "Never seen his folks." "Don't know," Emma admitted, "but he's hungry." Rachel, the line cook, pulled Emma aside after the 3rd week. "You're feeding a stray," she said, not cruelly, but with the bluntness of someone who'd seen good deeds go south. "Handouts don't teach gratitude. He'll bolt one day. They always do." Emma didn't argue. She just shrugged and said, "It's okay. I know what hungry feels like." It was the most she'd ever shared about herself in her 4 years at Betty's. The boy never offered his name, and Emma never pressed. Something about him, the way he eased into the diner, always checking the door in the street beyond the lake, told her questions would only push him away. Instead, she kept his water glass full, the pancakes warm, and the diner a place where he could relax for 45 minutes each morning. In quieter moments when the boy was lost in his book, Emma wondered, did he live nearby? Did he have family? Why? Was he always alone? And why did hunger seem like an old friend? But she let the questions fade. Kindness with strings attached wasn't kindness at all. So she kept up their silent pact, watching as the boy's tense shoulders gradually relaxed, as his eyes lingered on hers a fraction longer each time she approached. That small shift, a glance stretching from a heartbeat to 2, convinced Emma that her small gesture mattered. By the 6th week, others noticed Emma's routine. Most stayed quiet, but some couldn't resist commenting. Their words edged with the sharpness of those who'd forgotten what needing help felt like. "Running a soup kitchen now?" asked a logger who stopped by weekly, his tone implying the arrangement was a waste. "Kids expect freebies everywhere these days," grumbled another regular. "Back in my day, you worked for your breakfast." Emma let the remarks roll off her, having learned that defending kindness often made critics dig in harder. But Tom, the diner's manager, wasn't so easily brushed off. He called Emma into the cramped office behind the kitchen one morning, his face stern under his ever-present baseball cap. "I've seen you with that kid," he said, drumming his fingers on the desk. "Can't have you giving away food. It's bad for business and sets a bad example." Emma twisted her apron in her hands. "I get it. I'll pay for it myself." Tom's eyes widened. "From your tips? You barely make enough to cover your heat bill." "It's my call," Emma said, her voice steady with resolve. "Just one meal a day. I'll handle it." Tom studied her, then sighed. "Fine, but if it messes with your work or that kid causes trouble, it's done. Got it?" Emma nodded, relief flooding her. She'd braced for a reprimand, maybe even losing her job, but this she could manage. Each morning, she set aside tips, money that could have gone toward new snow tires or the doctor's visit she kept putting off, to cover the boys' breakfast. On a bitter Thursday in October, when frost coated the diner's windows, the boy didn't show. Emma found herself glancing at the door every few minutes, a knot forming in her gut. She made his usual pancakes anyway, setting them at his empty booth just in case. "Waste of batter," Rachel muttered, shaking her head as she flipped burgers. By closing time, the cold pancakes sat untouched, a quiet rebuke. Emma wrapped them up and took them home, unable to throw them out. The boy didn't come the next day, or the next. A week passed with no sign of him, and Emma began to wonder if Rachel was right. Had he moved on, like strays often did? The thought left a hollow pang she couldn't shake. She knew nothing about him, not his name, not his story. Yet his absence felt like a loss, a small warmth gone cold. "Told you," Rachel said on the 10th day, her tone more resigned than smug. "They don't stick around once the free food dries up." During this time, Emma caught a customer snapping photos of the empty booth where she still occasionally left a plate just in case. The next day, she learned why. A local Facebook group had posted the pictures with a snarky caption, "Betty's Diner now serving ghost kids for clout." The comments were harsher. "Total PR stunt, probably tossing the food after the photo op. Feeding strays just breeds laziness. That waitress needs to wise up. Next time a random kid shows up, don't fall for it. They're playing you." Emma had never cared much for gossip, but the venom in those words stung. That night, alone in her apartment, she questioned herself for the first time. Was she naive to help someone without knowing their story? Was she seeing her own past in a situation she didn't understand? For comfort, she opened the wooden box where she kept her treasures. Inside was a faded photo of her father in his army medic uniform, his smile soft against the stark Iraqi desert. Next to it was his worn leather journal, its pages fragile from years of reading. Emma flipped to a familiar page, her father's words etched in her memory. "Shared my MRE with a local kid today. Wilson called me an idiot, said he'd probably rat us out to insurgents. Maybe, but the way he looked when he ate. Same as me when Mom saved me the last slice of cornbread during the lean years. You don't go broke sharing half a meal, but those who don't share stay hungry forever." Emma traced her father's handwriting, a quiet clarity settling over her. She didn't need the boy's name or story to recognize hunger, and hunger, physical or otherwise, called for food, not interrogation. Nobody knew the boy's name. Nobody recalled the face of the helper, but each morning someone wasn't hungry anymore. If you still believe small acts can change lives, please type hope. On the 23rd morning of the boy's absence, Emma arrived at the diner with lowered expectations. The reflex to check the door at 7:10 lingered, but the sharp hope had faded to a dull ache. Still, she made a small stack of pancakes and set them at his booth, just in case. At 9:15 a.m., everything shifted. The diner, usually alive with the clink of forks and morning chatter, fell silent. Emma, pouring coffee near the window with its view of the lake, looked up as 4 black SUVs with government plates crunched into the gravel lot. They parked with military precision, forming a semicircle by the entrance. Customers froze. Coffee, cups halfway to lips. Outside, locals walking dogs or heading to the post office paused to gawk as uniformed men stepped out, standing at attention by each vehicle. From the lead SUV emerged a man whose presence demanded respect before his uniform did. Tall, with a face weathered by Montana's wind and years of hard choices, he wore the dress uniform of a senior military officer, his chest heavy with medals that glinted in the morning sun. He surveyed the diner's weathered sign before striding toward the door, flanked by 2 younger officers. The bell above the entrance jingled, sharp in the hushed room. Tom hustled from the back, adjusting his cap nervously. "Can I help you folks?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. The senior officer removed his cap. "I'm looking for a woman named Emma who works here." The diner grew so quiet, Emma could hear the hum of the soda machine. All eyes turned to her as she stepped forward, coffee pot in hand. "I'm Emma," she said, forcing her voice to stay even despite her dry throat. The officer's stern face softened. "Emma Larson?" She nodded, setting the pot down before her shaking hands could give her away. "I'm Colonel Robert Hayes, United States Army Special Forces Command." He pulled a crisp envelope from his pocket. "I'm here because of a promise to one of my soldiers." He held out the envelope. "This is from the Commanding General of Special Forces Operations, and I have a personal message from Ethan's father." "Ethan," Emma echoed, the name unfamiliar yet heavy. "The boy you've been feeding these past months," Colonel Hayes clarified. "Ethan Carter. His father was Master Sergeant Daniel Carter, one of the best men I ever commanded." The past tense hit Emma like a cold gust off the lake. "I don't understand," she said, not yet taking the envelope. "Is Ethan okay?" "He's safe," the colonel assured her. "He's with his grandparents now in Wyoming. But for nearly 3 months he came here every morning before school, while his father was deployed on a classified mission." The puzzle pieces clicked into place. The boy's solitude, his watchful eyes, the hunger that ran deeper than an empty stomach. What Sergeant Carter didn't know, the colonel continued, was that his wife had left soon after his deployment, leaving Ethan alone. The boy was too proud, too scared of being taken from his home to tell anyone. He got by on his own, stretching the small emergency fund his father left, making meals last longer than they should. A murmur of shock rippled through the diner. Emma's chest tightened, imagining Ethan, now with a name and a story, fending for himself, waiting for a father who wouldn't come back. "Sergeant Carter was killed in Afghanistan 2 months ago," Colonel Hayes said, his voice steady but not emotionless. In his last letter, he wrote that if anything happened to him, we should thank the woman named Emma at the diner who fed Ethan without prying. He opened the envelope, pulling out a handwritten note on worn paper. He wrote, "If I don't make it, find the woman feeding my son breakfast." Ethan mentioned her in his letters. She never asked why he was alone or made him feel small. She just fed him day after day, expecting nothing. Tell her she didn't just feed a hungry kid. She preserved the dignity of a soldier's son. Emma took the letter, her hands trembling, tears clouding her vision. The colonel's voice seemed distant as he added, "The letter was read at Sergeant Carter's memorial. When Ethan finally told us about you, the Special Forces community vowed to find you and thank you in person. What you did." His voice wavered briefly. "For the son of one of our own, without even knowing who he was, means something to us all." The diner was silent. Even those who'd scoffed at Emma's kindness sat still, some with faces tinged with regret. Colonel Hayes stood tall, snapped to attention, and saluted, a rare honor for a civilian. Behind him, every uniformed soldier followed suit. On behalf of the United States Army Special Forces, the brothers of Master Sergeant Carter, and above, all Ethan, thank you. Emma stood rooted, overwhelmed at her small acts, pancakes with huckleberry syrup, a glass of milk, A smile without questions had meant so much to a boy facing unimaginable hardship and a father fighting his final battles far away. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I just couldn't let him go hungry." The colonel nodded. "Sometimes that's enough, Miss Larson. Sometimes feeding a hungry child without asking why is the greatest kindness there is." As if choreographed, every soldier inside and outside the diner saluted in unison. The customers, stirred by the moment, rose to their feet in quiet respect. Emma, the unassuming waitress who'd lived quietly for years, stood at the heart of it, holding a father's last thank you. A woman whose daily kindness had sustained not just a child's body, but a soldier's honor and peace in his final days. The week after the colonel's visit changed Betty's diner in ways no one expected. The story spread through Whitefish like wildfire, leaping from coffee shop murmurs to Instagram to the local paper. The Facebook group that had mocked Emma's ghost kid now shared a heartfelt post about Sergeant Carter's letter, racking up thousands of likes and comments. Regulars began requesting Emma's section, leaving generous tips with notes. "Thank you for showing us what matters," and "My daughter's in the Air Force. Your kindness gives me hope." Tom, who'd once balked at Emma's free pancakes, hung a small American flag by Ethan's old booth. Below it, he placed a simple plaque, "For those who serve and the families who wait." The booth was rarely empty, filled by veterans, soldiers passing through on their way to Glacier National Park, and sometimes families clearly scraping by, treated with quiet respect by the staff. On the 7th day after the visit, a plain envelope arrived for Emma. Inside was a letter on notebook paper, the careful handwriting revealing its young author. "Dear Miss Emma, I didn't know your name until the colonel came, but every morning for those months you were the only one who saw me like I wasn't invisible or broken. Dad said real heroes don't wear capes, they wear uniforms. But I think sometimes they wear aprons too. When Dad stopped writing, I thought the world forgot us both, but you remembered me every day, even when I couldn't explain why I was alone. Grandma and Grandpa are kind. They're teaching me to ride horses, and Grandma makes great apple pie. But I miss Dad, and sometimes I miss your pancakes too. Thank you for not asking questions when I couldn't answer. Your friend, Ethan Carter. P.S. I finished my book. It had a happy ending." Emma framed the letter and hung it behind the counter, not for show but as a reminder of why small kindnesses matter. When asked about it, she'd smile and say, "Just a note from a special kid." The diner's tie to special forces spread through military circles. Soldiers detoured to visit, leaving unit coins or patches as thanks. These joined a small bulletin board behind the counter, a growing tribute from across the globe. 3 months later, a school group stopped by after a trip to the nearby national forest. A 9-year-old girl with wide eyes watched Emma refill water glasses. "My mom says you're a hero," she declared. Emma knelt, smiling. "No, sweetie, I'm just someone who knows what it's like to be hungry, not just for food." "The Ray," girl's teacher overhearing added softly. "She's right." Emma met the woman's knowing look with a nod. Hunger took many forms. Food was just the start. As spring neared, the diner held a fundraiser for military families, raising enough to start a small fund for children of deployed parents. Tom surprisingly matched the donations, admitting to Emma, "Never got why my dad fed every kid who showed up at our door. Drove Mom nuts. But I see it now. Sometimes a meal's more than food." On a quiet Tuesday, nearly a year after Ethan first walked in, Emma arrived to find a metallic glint on her station. A challenge coin, a military token rarely given outside units, sat beside her order pad. One side bore the Special Forces crest. The other was engraved, "Semper Memor," always remembering. Emma scanned the empty diner, then stepped outside, searching the street as the morning breeze rustled the flag above the door. No unfamiliar cars, no waiting figures, just Whitefish waking up, the lake glinting and the school bus rumbling in the distance. She tucked the coin in her pocket, its weight a quiet reminder that kindness given freely sometimes returns unexpectedly. That evening, as she hung her apron, Emma saw Tom taping a new sign in the window. Simple but clear, it read, "Whoever you are, whatever you can pay, No one leaves hungry. Catching her eye, he shrugged. New rule. Felt right. Emma smiled, recognizing the unspoken shift in him. No speeches, just a quiet vow to see. Hunger and answer with what was needed. Food without judgment, kindness without questions. Walking home under a sky streaked with Montana's endless stars. The coin solid in her pocket, Emma thought of Ethan growing up in Wyoming, carrying his father's memory, and she hoped the knowledge that even in the darkest times, kindness waits in unexpected places. Not every helper seeks recognition. Some just need to know that today, someone isn't hungry, and that alone can change a life. You might forget this story soon, but if no one retells it, history stays silent. Subscribe to incredible stories where justice, kindness, and memory endure.